both these teams, they're in do or die mode now.
Which 0-2 team are you guys most concerned about? The Chargers or the Bengals?
So I'm going to start here because I'm more concerned about the Bengals. I am super duper concerned about the Bengals. They lost to the Baltimore Ravens 27-24. That score does not do this game justice. It was not a close game. It was never in doubt for the Baltimore Ravens, in my personal opinion. So the main two things that I'm concerned with is that the Cincinnati Bengals are not generating explosive plays. According to RBSDM, Joe Burrow had a 5.4 average depth of target. And I say according to RBSDM because they filter out like throwaways and spikes and all that shit. So it might not look like the official stat sheet, but you get a better gauge for it. So Burrow's average depth of target was 5.4 in comparison to Lamar Jackson, who had a 9.1 average depth of target in this game. Lamar Jackson, the running back. Keep that in mind. The longest play for the Cincinnati Bengals was a 32-yard, pretty much screen pass to Joe Mixon. It was kind of like a play action, and then he came across the formation. So they really weren't generating anything explosive. And then they had no success on early downs, first and second down. A negative .21 EPA per play on first and second down. They were a negative .26 in week 1 against the Browns. And then Joe Burrow had a very, very costly interception in the third quarter. It was a 13-10 game. The Bengals made it down to the red zone, and it was a bad read. And, that was kind of the game right there. And why I'm super concerned about the Bengals more than the Chargers is they're struggling to generate explosive plays. They're struggling on early downs. If Joe Burrow re-aggravated his injury and he plays through that, that's not going to change. If Joe Burrow has to sit out a week, who's the backup again? I forgot his name off the top of my head.
Jake Browning.
Jake Browning isn't going to be able to generate those explosive plays. So I think regardless, they're in trouble because this team is dependent on their offense. We know their defense. We give them credit. We give Lou Anarumo a ton of credit. In my opinion, through 2 weeks, their defense has been just about what I thought it would be. Okay, or maybe a little bit above average. I think they're definitely missing Jesse Bates, which I thought they would. I think Dax Hill has been good. Shout out to Lav, because that was his breakout candidate for the AFC North.
Yes, it was.
I think Dax Hill has been good, but you're not going to replace an all-pro safety like that, especially on a team who lacks great cornerbacks. You need that elite over-the-top safety to help out. So I think the defense has been okay, not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but this team needs their offense to be great, to be competitive.
Yep.
And whether it's a 70% Joe Burrow or a backup quarterback, I don't expect the offense to improve in the next couple of weeks. The Chargers, on the other hand, we know their problems. Their problem is their defense. But we've seen Justin Herbert carry a bad defense, carry a team with injured weapons to the playoffs. So that's why I'm not as concerned about. I never thought of the Chargers as a Super Bowl contender anyway. I thought they were going to have some reoccurring problems, which they are. But Justin Herbert's good enough to carry them to at least the playoffs. I don't know if a 70% Joe Burrow or a Jake Browning is good enough to carry the Bengals to the playoffs, especially, the segment is teams that started 0-2. I know it doesn't seem like a lot because there's 18 weeks in the NFL season. You play 17 games, but I think Joel said this on Pick Aside. Shout out the Pick Aside guys. I think it was 11% of teams that start 0-2 make the playoffs.
Yep.
So, you were putting yourself in a big hole starting 0-2. And now, the Bengals, they don't have an easy game against the Rams next week. You play the Rams without Joe Burrow. You start your season 0-3. You could almost essentially chalk it up. Both these teams, they're in do or die mode now.
Yep.
I will say this about the 0-2 thing. They did also start 0-2 last season, and they finished with 4 losses, I think.
Yeah.
So
that's something that concerns me even more, though, because how much of an outlier was that? What are the odds they repeat that?
Mm-hmm. So I completely agree with you. I'm more worried about the Bengals, but it's weird because these two teams are playing bad for 2 completely different reasons. The Chargers are playing bad despite Justin Herbert playing very good. but the Bengals are playing bad because Joe Burrow is playing very bad. And I feel like this has obviously been a factor because
Bless you.
Bless you. There's been a factor because Joe Burrow had this injury in the offseason. He hurt his calf, right? And I think the reason that he's playing this bad is because they rushed him back. You know, it's obvious. And now
Bless you.
He re-aggravated it. He re-aggravated it again. And who says they don't just do the same thing again and just bring him back too early? They're not giving him the time to rest. And like you said, they're in a lose-lose. It's either they're playing with an injured Joe Burrow, like they have been the past 2 weeks, losing games, not playing as good, or they're playing without Joe Burrow, and they're not going to win games like that either. So, like you said, Bengals, lose-lose situation. I'm more worried about them. Chargers, Justin Herbert's proved that he could lead a bad defense to the playoffs.
And I actually tweeted about this, and someone said, like, I mean, you got to understand that Burrow's playing injured, blah, 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 all that. And I'm like, no, I understand. If Joe Burrow was 100% healthy, I would have no concerns about the Bengals.
But that's the point.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the point.
I'm more concerned about the Chargers, even with all that being said. I have to say that, yes, I understand. And that argument that you just stated is kind of part of my argument. I think I'm not concerned so long as Joe Burrow's injury isn't serious. And it might be.
It's been a thing that's been going on for over a month.
Which scares me.
You know?
But in every metric that you can think of, except for stopping the run now this season, the Los Angeles Chargers defense has been far and away the worst defense in football, which terrifies me because it doesn't make any sense at all. You have Khalil Mack. You have Joey Bosa. You have what should be a big money player in J.C. Jackson. You have, obviously, this improved rush defense now. You have Derwin James. You have Asante Samuel Jr. All players that we think are great. And it's not working. This offense looks explosive. I'm not taking anything away from that. Keenan Allen all of a sudden just revitalized himself as a deep threat now, which is insane. Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston, everyone looks good. Everyone looks good on the offense. Even though I started Josh Kelly in fantasy in a few leagues and he did fucking nothing this week.
He was horrible.
They also don't commit to the run game. That's part of the issue as well.
Yeah.
Someone needs to get fired. Someone needs to be fired. Whether it's Brandon Staley, whether it's the defensive coordinator, someone needs to be fired. And I don't know who, and it concerns me because it just seems like every single season there's high hopes, and you just think it's all going to work. And now here you are, 0-2, worst defense in football, can't stop a pass for your life at the current moment. And it just seems like things just won't get any better on that side of the ball. Even though Herbert's playing lights out once again, how much can a quarterback really do? To a point. So I'm concerned. I'm definitely concerned. I think the Bengals will be fine if Joe Burrow is healthy. If he's not,
I agree, but that's the whole
fucked.
That's the whole point, though.
If he's not, then you're fucked.
Like they weren't good the past 2 weeks because they rushed him back because he's playing hurt.
Like I agree
The
with
downfield
It's
is
not just
really
gonna go.
bad.
It's not just gonna go away.
Jamar Chase has become non-existent down the field.
You know, like you're saying, you're not concerned if it's not a serious injury. I mean, it doesn't matter the severity of it at this point. They can't afford to not having 100% Joe Burrow at all. And I think they play Monday night, if I'm not mistaken, this week against the Rams. Monday night is a must-win. I mean, the same could be said for the Chargers in Week 3. Like, both these teams, it's must-win games. Mm-hmm. But I don't know who the Chargers play in Week 3. If someone wants to let me know. The Vikings? Yes, it is the Vikings. I'll take my chances on Justin Herbert and a shitty defense against the Vikings than a Jake Browning-led Bengals team against the Rams.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's must-win territory for both teams. So it's all the 0-2 teams.
Especially the Vikings. This is about as must-win for both of those teams as possible. So is that what time is that? Does it even say? Because
I think that's a 4 o'clock game.
Okay.
I might be wrong.
Because I'm intrigued to fully just tune into that game, but I probably won't. I'm gonna be on Red Zone, and then I'll just watch the condensed game after. But
1 o'clock game.
1 o'clock.
But yeah, so it concerns me a whole lot. But I will say the Chargers offense does look about as good as advertised, and the offensive line is healthy and playing incredibly well, which is it's great to see. Honestly, super nice to see that Justin Herbert is finally protected. So
yeah, they're gonna put up points. It's just how do you let the Titans put up 27? We were saying
That's
Ryan
what I'm
Tannehill.
saying.
We were saying Ryan Tannehill was the worst quarterback in the league after
And it was
week
crazy
one.
because the run defense is good for the Chargers, and Derrick Henry didn't
he didn't
do
go
much.
nuts. No, he didn't go nuts.
He averaged 3 yards a carry and had a touchdown on the goal line. He didn't really do much.
Yeah.
Ty Spears, by the
What are
way,
you more concerned with?
might I add.
I'm more concerned with the Bengals. Bring up the points you guys just said. I mean, not having a healthy Joe Burrow is not good. And the Chargers, to this point at least, have been competitive in every single game they've played in. The Bengals have just looked simply outmatched, especially in their own conference, their own division. They're playing the Browns, who owned them recently.
Yeah.
And then they played the Ravens the other day. Lamar does own Joe Burrow in the head-to-head matchup. But they didn't look competitive. Like you said, Jamar Chase has been a non-factor, I feel like, all season. He hasn't been the Jamar Chase that everyone's expected to see.
Yep.
And obviously,
My dynasty team can tell you that right now.
yeah. And Joe Burrow hasn't been the Joe Burrow, obviously, because they rushed him back from an injury. And it's not good. The Chargers, I feel like, are a more sustainable offense and will be in more games than the Bengals will be without Joe Burrow.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I get that.
So I have some stats about the Chargers. So first of all, like you guys said, it's nuts that they allowed Ryan Tannehill to look as awesome as he did. Bro completed 83% of his passes, 246 yards. He threw an absolute bomb in the second quarter to Treylon Burks that set up the Derrick Henry
That was a
touchdown.
dime. My God.
And then, so early, shout out to RBSDM for real for all these efficiency stats and all that, because it's really a game changer. But the early downs determined the game. The Chargers had no run game, obviously, like you guys said. Josh Kelly went 13 for 39 yards, 3 a carry. They had a negative .30 EPA per play on early rushing downs. The defense allowed a .45 EPA per play on early passing downs. So they allowed Ryan Tannehill to move the ball through the air on early passing downs. It was cool that Joey Bosa showed up. He had 2 sacks in this game. He was a non-factor in week 1. So shout out to Joey Bosa for showing up. Asante Samuel looked terrible.
Holy shit.
Not good. Derwin James, I think, was fine. But in total, the two of them were targeted a combined 7 times and allowed 7 receptions. That's not good. I will say the Chargers had a chance to put the game away in the fourth quarter, up 21-17 with the ball. They punted, which led to Tannehill chucking a 40-yard bomb to Chris Moore. Then Kenneth Murray got a roughing the passer call on a third down, which was converted, but it added another 15 yards to the play, which set up the Titans in 1st and goal. Careless mistakes by the defense. We know they're not good, but if you're not going to be good, at least don't make the careless mistakes.
So many penalties. So many penalties in this game.
And then I have to say, for, as much as we want to give Justin Herbert the benefit of the doubt, because he's playing on such a shitty defense, the past 3 weeks, going back to last year's playoffs, it hasn't looked good for him. He had a chance to win this game. It shouldn't have been in overtime in the first place. I'll give you that. But you got the ball first in overtime. Do you know how happy Josh Allen would be if he got the ball first in overtime? He got the ball first in overtime. The first play was a deep shot into double coverage.
It was terrible play calling.
When I watched the game back, the checkdowns were there. Take your checkdowns. You didn't need to score a touchdown on the first play of overtime. Second play, he threw it away. So now you're on 3rd and 10.
Yep.
And he essentially had another throwaway. It was nowhere near the receiver. You're 3 and out. That can't happen. And I know they can't run the ball like you would like them to at least run the ball on 1st or 2nd down, get some yards so it's not a 3rd and long. But, Justin Herbert in that situation, I give him a pass because the defense is terrible, and he still looked great. But when you get in that situation, the great quarterbacks get it done.
Yep.
The great quarterbacks get it done.
Yeah.
So, that has to be said. I'm not blaming the game on him. There's so many other things to blame about this Chargers team, but that's something that has to be brought up.
Yeah.
When you get the ball first in overtime, you cannot afford to go 3 and out. That's not a good look.
Yeah, I put it here. The play calling in both the red zone and at the start of overtime was horrific in this game. It was so bad. The Chargers averaged 3.1 yards before contact on each rushing attempt, which is top 10 in the NFL currently. And they don't run the ball nearly enough. And they didn't in this game. Like, I understand Josh Kelly did not average great yards per carry in this game, but you just got to stick with it. You just have to keep trying, especially at the start of overtime. We're really going to take a deep shot on the first play, and it wasn't even like remotely close. There was no opportunity there. I will say a few things. Herbert forced a few balls into double coverage that were unnecessary, entirely unnecessary. He didn't get picked off, but some of the throws were questionable. And Herbert was not phenomenal in this game, but he's been good overall over the first 2 games of the season, for sure. But I'm puzzled. I don't get it. I don't understand why we can't run the football just a little bit. The defense, bottom 4 in pressure rate with 2 guys that are big name players. 2 guys that are massive names in the NFL.
It's so sad to see Khalil Mack fall off.
Oh,
like
my
that.
God.
I love Khalil Mack, bro.
Oh,
That's
my
my
God.
guy. Like,
He looks
he's just a
washed.
non-factor.
In terms of rushing the passer, he looks washed. Stopping the run, he still sets a great edge.
Yeah.
That doesn't go with age. You really are always a good run stuffer if you are at some point in your career. Max still could stuff the run. He can't rush the passer for his life anymore. It looks rough. So, I don't know, man. I'm worried about the Chargers. I'm worried about this defense. They can't pressure. They can't cover.